An abridgment of Thomas Manton's commentary on the Epistle of James chapter 4, 2b. You want something but don't get it. You kill and covet, but you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and fight. You do not have, because you do not ask God. James 4 verse 2 addresses the root cause of conflict, tracing it back to the restless desires and covetousness that disturb relationships, creating tension and strife among individuals and communities alike. Solomon's wisdom reinforces this point. A greedy man brings trouble to his family, Proverbs 15 verse 27, and this trouble extends beyond his own household to others around him. Covetousness, as an insatiable desire, disrupts peace, leading people to actions they might otherwise avoid. When left unchecked, it drives individuals to unjust means and fuels enmity against those who have what they desire. Ahab's envy over Naboth's vineyard illustrates this bitter truth. His unrestrained covetousness led him to spill innocent blood. Likewise, selfish ambition for personal gain often motivates some to exploit public trust, neglecting the rights and needs of others. Achan's greed brought calamity upon Israel, Joshua 7, reminding us how the consequences of covetousness extend beyond the individual, especially when found in positions of influence. Jeremiah's rebuke highlights this. Woe to him who builds his palace by unrighteousness, his upper rooms by injustice, making his countrymen work for nothing, Jeremiah 22 verse 13. Given this, it is understandable why covetous individuals are often met with public resentment and distrust. Their actions disrupt not only the sanctity of their relationship with God, but also the fabric of human community. Those who allow covetousness to control them prove resistant to both the restraints of nature and the demands of grace. They are unmoved by moral arguments and reverence neither God nor humanity, echoing the behavior of the judge in Luke 18 verse 2, who neither feared God nor cared about men. The scriptures warn of such dispositions. They displease God and are hostile to all men, 1 Thessalonians 2 verse 15, showing that envy and selfish ambition breed only discord, isolating individuals in self-centeredness. The insatiable desires that stem from worldly lusts drive people to greater evils. Covetousness urges not only dishonest ambitions but pushes individuals toward any means necessary, dishonorable, or violent, to fulfill their desires. They fall prey to temptation and rush into self-destructive pursuits. Paul's warning in 1 Timothy 6 verse 9 clarifies this. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and Proverbs echoes this sentiment, saying, one eager to get rich will not go unpunished, Proverbs 28 verse 20. When God withholds blessings, those driven by worldly desire may turn to deceptive means, displaying how greed can become a tyrant, urging one to seek riches even at the cost of morality or integrity. The path of wicked ambition leads inevitably to frustration, for God resists the efforts of those who ignore His will, frustrating their attempts to secure blessings apart from His guidance. The psalmist observes, He thwarts the purposes of the peoples, Psalm 33 verse 10. And Paul reaffirms this by reminding us that God will overcome and have the best of it, Romans 3 verse 4. This resistance becomes evident in specific instances. When individuals press forward with their plans in defiance of providence, repeatedly ignoring God's warnings, they face His correction. The king of Israel endangered his own men by sending 50 soldiers after Elijah, despite previous losses, 2 Kings 1. Similarly, Pharaoh hardened his heart, enduring successive plagues without repentance. Balaam's repeated attempts to curse Israel, even as he faced obstacles from God, illustrate human stubbornness against divine direction, Numbers 22. Attempts to counter God's promises or circumvent His warnings are equally futile. Ahab attempted to secure his lineage against God's judgment by fathering many sons, only to have them all beheaded by Jehu's order. Herod, in his fear, ordered the slaughter of Bethlehem's infants to prevent the rise of a rival, but he was ultimately powerless to thwart God's purpose, as seen in the survival of Jesus. Proverbs 21 verse 30 teaches, "There is no wisdom, no insight, no plan that can succeed against the Lord. Any scheme designed to oppose God's purposes will come to naught, regardless of the schemer's resourcefulness." God likewise frustrates the ambitions of those who turn to unlawful means when their lawful efforts are unfruitful. When individuals look for satisfaction outside of God's will, resorting to violence or deceit, they incur his judgment. The builders of Babel assumed they could establish security in human achievement apart from God's promise, yet they faced dispersion and confusion. Genesis 11 verse 4. Likewise, efforts driven by personal will, rather than divine guidance, often fail. Confidence in personal plans without deference to God's sovereignty rarely finds his blessing, as demonstrated when the haughty intentions of Pharaoh were dashed as he pursued the Israelites. Repeated assaults on the church and its mission by earthly powers further illustrate this principle. Isaiah's prophecy in Isaiah 8 verses 9 to 10 affirms that no alliance, no matter how formidable, can stand against the will of God's people. When they unite in the purpose of resisting God's kingdom, they are consistently shattered as God upholds his church. Such resistance is futile, for God has determined to support his people and frustrate the counsel of his enemies. The reason for failure is simple, James explains. Because you do not ask? By neglecting prayer, people enter into endeavors without seeking God's permission or his blessing. To act without prayer is to attempt self-sufficiency, which only brings hardship. For the families that do not call on God's name must be cursed, as they attempt to secure happiness without his guidance. Prayer shows submission, and even though God knows our needs, he requires that we come before him, acknowledging our dependence upon his wisdom and provision. As Ezekiel says, "I will yield to the plea of the house of Israel." Ezekiel 36 verse 37, demonstrating that God listens to those who seek him earnestly. Thus, we learn that we must not engage in actions we cannot ask God to bless. Endeavors that make us hesitant to pray for God's approval are likely ventures we should not pursue. We must live in such a way that all our undertakings can be brought openly before the Lord. For, as Isaiah declares, "Woe to those who go to great depths to hide their plans from the Lord." Isaiah 29 verse 15. The believer must take care to ensure that both desire and action align with God's will, lest they find themselves struggling in vain against his providential hand.